The chandeliers of the Lu family mansion glittered like frost as laughter drifted through the marble halls. The engagement banquet of Lu Xinyi, the only daughter of the Lu Group, and Zhao Tianyu, heir to Zhao Holdings, was the event of the year. Every elite in City A was here. Glasses clinked, photographers flashed, and whispers of envy trailed wherever she walked. Xinyi stood beside her fiancé, her white silk gown catching the light. To outsiders, she was the picture of grace. Poised, gentle, deeply in love. She had spent 3 years by Tianyu's side, believing he was her partner, her future. But tonight, her world would end. When the speeches began, Xinyi quietly slipped away to catch her breath. Her heels clicked down the corridor, the sound fading into the soft hum of music behind her. She stopped by the study, a quiet place her father often used. But as she reached for the door, she heard a voice. His voice. Once the Lu Group is under our control, we'll merge the assets and dissolve the board. Her father's too ill to fight back. Xinyi froze. Her hand trembled on the doorknob. Then another voice. Light, feminine, and sharp. And the girl? What if she finds out? She's too naive, Tianyu said coldly. After the wedding, she'll sign whatever I give her. Once her father passes, I'll be the one running the company. Her heart stopped. Don't look so worried, Ru Yan, he added, his tone softening. After it's done, you'll have everything. Including me. A low laugh followed, the laugh of her oldest friend, Lin Ruoyan. The laughter echoed in Xinyi's ears like a blade scraping glass. Her breath hitched. The air felt heavy, her vision blurring with disbelief. The people she trusted most, her fiancé and her best friend, had been weaving a net around her all along. Without realizing it, Xinyi pushed open the door. Tianyu and Ruoyan froze mid-embrace. Xinyi, he started, his voice faltering. She stared at them, her face pale under the crystal light. So this is what love looks like to you, she whispered. Ruoyan's lips curled slightly, pretending guilt. Xinyi, you misunderstood. Enough, Xinyi said. Her voice, usually soft, carried a quiet power that silenced them both. You plotted against my family. Against my father. For money. Tianyu stepped forward, mask cracking. You don't understand how business works. Xinyi. Your father's company is falling apart. I was just trying to protect our future. By selling me out? Silence fell. She laughed bitterly. You didn't just destroy my future, Tianyu. You destroyed every ounce of faith I had in you. She turned, eyes glistening. Not from weakness, but from something colder. By the time the banquet ended, the guests whispered about how pale Miss Lu looked, how she left early. No one knew that in the following days, the Lu Group's accounts would be frozen, and a mysterious accident would claim the life of the heiress in the river outside City A. The world mourned her briefly. The Zhao family sent flowers. Lin Ruoyan wore white to the funeral. And then they moved on. But 1 year later, under the neon glow of downtown Shanghai, a woman stepped out of a black car, her heels sharp against the pavement, her face hidden beneath a black veil. Her voice, when she spoke, was calm and elegant. Lu Xinyi is dead, she said softly. From now on, my name is Shen Xiran. And somewhere in the night, thunder rolled. The storm of revenge had begun. Rain poured relentlessly that night, washing the glitter from the city skyline and turning the Lu mansion into a hollow shell of its former glory. The newspapers called it the collapse of the Lu Empire. Share prices had plummeted overnight. Investors pulled out. Anonymous reports exposed alleged embezzlement and corruption, fabricated evidence that pointed straight to Lu Xinyi. It was a masterpiece of betrayal. Every piece meticulously arranged. By Zhao Tianyu and Lin Ruoyan. Inside the mansion, Xinyi sat in her father's study. The once proud patriarch of the Lu Group, Lu Guoxiang, lay unconscious in a hospital bed miles away, his heart giving out the night he learned of the accusations. The room smelled faintly of medicine and cold tea. Xinyi's phone buzzed again. Another message. From Ruoyan. Xinyi, don't do anything rash. I'll talk to Tianyu. We can fix this. Xinyi stared at the text, lips curling into a bitter smile. Fix this? The woman who destroyed her life now dared to play savior. Her lawyer's voice echoed in her mind from earlier that day. Miss Lu, all your assets are frozen. The board has voted to remove you from the company. I suggest you leave the city until things calm down. Leave. Hide. Disappear. It sounded so simple. Yet for the first time in her life, Xinyi realized what it meant to have nothing. Outside, thunder cracked. Lightning flashed across the windowpane, illuminating her reflection. Eyes red, face pale, shoulders trembling. Then, something inside her snapped. She opened the drawer and pulled out a small flash drive, her father's last gift. Inside it was the truth. Company ledgers, private recordings, documents that proved who had orchestrated the downfall. The evidence of her betrayal. If used right, it could destroy them. But not yet. As the rain grew heavier, she typed a final message to her assistant, Chen Wei, her only loyal subordinate. Prepare everything. Tomorrow it ends. The next morning, news broke. Heiress Lu Xinyi presumed dead after car crash on Highway 9. Her vehicle had veered off a bridge and into the river below. No body was found. The police declared it an accident. Zhao Tianyu stood before the cameras, expression grave but calm. Xinyi was a kind woman, he said, lowering his gaze. It breaks my heart that she couldn't handle the pressure. I only hope she finds peace. At his side, Lin Ruoyan dabbed delicately at her eyes with a lace handkerchief. The reporters whispered, "What a tragedy, what a waste of beauty." But far from the flashing cameras, deep in a coastal village near Qingdao, a fisherman's boat drifted quietly toward shore. Wrapped in soaked blankets, a pale figure stirred on the deck. Her fingers twitched. Her lips parted in a ragged breath. "Where am I?" she whispered weakly. The fisherman leaned over. "You're lucky, miss. The sea almost took you. Rest easy now." But she didn't rest. Her memories flooded back. The betrayal, the laughter, the lies. And as the dawn broke over the horizon, Lu Xinyi opened her eyes fully for the first time since the crash. The woman who once wept for love was gone. In her place was something colder, sharper, like steel forged in fire. "They wanted me dead," she murmured, her voice hoarse. "Then I'll make them wish I truly was." A full year passed since the night the river swallowed Lu Xinyi. The world believed she was gone, a tragic heiress destroyed by scandal and heartbreak. But in the quiet coastal city of Qingdao, far from the gossip and flashing lights of City a different woman rose from her ashes. The morning sun filtered through the large windows of a minimalist villa overlooking the sea. Inside, the rhythmic sounds of a keyboard filled the room. Shen Xiran, the name she now bore, typed swiftly, her gaze sharp and unyielding. Gone was the gentle innocence of Lu Xinyi. Her long hair was now jet black, her once soft features refined by discipline and purpose. The room around her was filled with traces of transformation. Stacks of business reports, open laptops, financial statements in multiple languages. The television played muted financial news, showing a familiar face. Zhao Tianyu, smiling at a press conference, introducing Lin Ruoyan as the new executive director of the Zhao-Lu conglomerate merger. Her lips curved faintly. "Perfect timing," she murmured. Behind her, a man in a black shirt entered, setting a cup of coffee beside her. "Another night without sleep," he said. She looked up at him. Zhang Rue, ex-military, now her closest ally. A man with cold eyes and a mind as calculating as hers. He'd been the one to find her half dead on the shore a year ago, and the one to train her into the woman she had become. "I'll sleep when I finish this," Xiran said. He leaned casually against the counter. "You've already infiltrated the Zhao Group's overseas accounts, traced the money trail, and bought a controlling share in one of their subsidiaries. What's next, Miss Shen?" "Next," she said, eyes narrowing, "we take the game to them." She pulled up a digital document, a forged identity file with official seals. Shen Xiran, CEO of Nova Capital, a Hong Kong-based investment firm. In reality, Nova was her weapon. A shell company built from the remnants of loyal Lu employees and investors who'd quietly returned to her side. Xiran rose and walked to the mirror. Her reflection stared back, poised, elegant, but her eyes burned with quiet rage. "They took my name, my company, and my father's legacy," she said softly. "Now I'll take everything they built on my ashes." Zhang Rue studied her for a moment. "And when Zhao Tianyu sees you?" Her expression didn't waver. "He won't recognize me. The woman he betrayed died in that river." She turned toward the window, the sea wind stirring her hair. "It's time to return to City A." 2 weeks later, at the airport in the capital, Whispers spread like wildfire among the business elite. A mysterious investor from Hong Kong, Miss Shen Xiran of Nova Capital, had arrived to discuss a billion-yuan partnership with Zhao Holdings. When she stepped out of the black Bentley at the Zhao Group headquarters, heads turned. Her black suit fit her like a glove, her heels clicked with authority, and her crimson lips curved into the faintest smile. The receptionist, flustered, nearly dropped her pen. "Miss Shen, President Zhao will see you now." She entered the boardroom. Zhao Tianyu rose from his seat, every bit the perfect gentleman. "Miss Shen, welcome to Zhao Holdings. It's an honor to finally meet the woman everyone's been talking about." His eyes swept over her face, polite curiosity, faint interest, and then something else. Familiarity. But he couldn't place it. "President Zhao," she said smoothly, extending her hand. "The honor is mine." Her voice, calm, melodic, carried no trace of the woman he once knew. As their hands met, a flicker of electricity passed between them. For the first time in a year, Lu Xinyi, now Shen Xiran, looked her betrayer in the eye. And smiled. Let the game begin. The skyline of City A stretched before her like a field of glass blades. Once, Lu Xinyi had looked at this city with pride and belonging. Now, Shen Xiran looked at it the way a hunter studies her prey, calculating the distance to strike. The elevator doors closed behind her with a soft hiss, sealing her inside with Zhao Tianyu. He smiled the same way he used to. Polished, practiced, charming enough to deceive anyone who didn't know the monster beneath. "Miss Shen, Nova Capital's offer is impressive. Few investors take such bold interest in domestic enterprises. May I ask what drew you to Zhao Holdings?" Xiran tilted her head slightly, her voice calm. "Opportunity. I invest in companies with potential, and yours, President Zhao, has quite the dramatic history." He laughed, not catching the edge in her tone. "True enough. We've had our challenges." Her eyes met his briefly, a flash of ice beneath the surface. "I've read the reports. You merged with the Lu Group after the tragedy last year, correct?" Tianyu's smile faltered for a heartbeat. "Yes. It was unfortunate. Miss Lu was a dear friend." Friend. The word tasted bitter even now. She let a small polite smile play on her lips. Tragic indeed. The elevator dinged. The doors opened to the top floor, Zhao Holdings' private lounge, where the city stretched endlessly below. "Allow me to show you our view," Tianyu said, gesturing to the glass wall. "It's the best in City A." Xiran stepped closer to the glass, her reflection shimmering beside his. In the reflection, she saw the man who had stolen everything, and the woman who had let him. "No more." "Beautiful," she murmured. "It's easy to forget how high one can fall from such heights." He chuckled. "I suppose it is." As the meeting went on, Xiran played her role flawlessly. Calm, sophisticated, every word deliberate. By the time they shook hands, Zhao Tianyu believed he was dealing with a powerful, emotionless investor who had no connection to his past sins. But beneath her smile, her mind was already setting the board. That night, in a luxury penthouse overlooking the Huangpu River, Xiran sat cross-legged on the sofa as Jiang Rue placed a file before her. "Everything you asked for," he said. Zhao's overseas accounts, their shell subsidiaries, and, he tapped another folder, Lin Ruoyan's newest project. Xiran's fingers froze over the second file. Ruoyan's smiling face stared up from a magazine cover. The rising star of Zhao Holdings, Lin Ruoyan to launch global beauty brand. Beneath the article was a blueprint for the company. One that used proprietary formulas once owned by Lu Group skincare division. Her father's research. Her blood ran cold. "They're using Lu patents?" "Not legally," Jiang Rue said. "But the paperwork was scrubbed clean. They hid the origin through 3 different shell companies. No one will notice unless we expose it." Xiran leaned back, eyes glinting under the city lights. "Then that will be our first strike." 3 days later, Zhao Holdings' press conference lit up social media. Lin Ruoyan stood on stage, elegant in white, announcing the launch of her brand, Luminous. But as she began her speech, a commotion broke out among the reporters. Screens behind her flickered, the logo of Luminous replaced by old Lu Group documents. Patent filings. Production memos. Signed by Lu Xinyi herself. Gasps filled the room. Ruoyan's face drained of color. What is this? And at that exact moment, seated in the front row, Shen Xiran crossed her legs gracefully, eyes gleaming. The reporters turned toward her. Miss Shen, as an investor in Zhao Holdings, do you have a statement on this? She smiled faintly, voice cool as silk. Only this. Some legacies don't stay buried forever. Cameras flashed. The scandal exploded across every news outlet by nightfall. Ruoyan's reputation cracked. The stock dipped. Zhao Tianyu, furious, launched an internal investigation, unaware that the very woman he welcomed into his company was the ghost of the one he destroyed. In her private suite that night, Xiran watched the chaos unfold on the news, sipping red wine. First blood, Jiang Rui said, leaning against the wall. She set the glass down, her expression unreadable. This is only the beginning. Morning broke with gray skies over City A. The storm from the night before had left the streets glistening, as though the city itself were trying to wash away its sins. Inside Zhao Holdings' headquarters, tension pulsed through every corridor. The luminous scandal had erupted like wildfire. Online forums were flooded with accusations: plagiarism, corporate theft, illegal use of Lu Group patents. By the time the markets opened, Zhao Holdings stock had fallen 7%. In the executive office, Zhao Tianyu hurled a folder onto the desk. Find out who leaked those documents. His secretary flinched. President Zhao. The IT department traced the breach to an external source. The access route was masked through multiple encrypted channels. Then unmask it. When the door closed, he exhaled slowly and loosened his tie. The pressure behind his temples throbbed. The merger, his reputation, everything he had built rested on keeping this company untarnished. He poured himself a glass of water, but the image of Shen Xiran flickered in his mind. Calm, confident, unbothered even as the chaos unfolded. Something about her unsettled him. Something too familiar. That same morning, on the 38th floor of the Jade Crown Hotel, Xiran stood before a full-length mirror. She wore a black fitted dress and a simple diamond pendant. Understated elegance with a touch of command. Across the room, Jiang Rui reviewed a report on his tablet. Your plan worked better than expected. Zhao Holdings is bleeding credibility, and Lin Ruoyan is hiding from the press. Xiran applied a faint shade of crimson lipstick and smiled at her reflection. One scandal isn't enough. Tianyu built his empire on manipulation. We'll strip it piece by piece until the only thing left is regret. Jiang Rui looked up. And when he finds out you're the one holding the knife? She turned, gaze hard. He won't, not yet. At noon, the city's business elite gathered at the Lotus Club, a private venue where deals were sealed behind closed doors. Xiran arrived precisely on time. As she entered, the room fell into a hush. Even among the wealthiest, her presence demanded attention. Miss Shen. Tianyu rose from his seat, the mask of composure restored. I wasn't sure you'd come, considering the chaos my company's in. Chaos creates opportunity, Xiran replied smoothly. I came to discuss our next move. They sat across from each other. The scent of jasmine tea mingled with the tension between them. I want to expand my investment, she said. But only if I have direct oversight of your product divisions. Transparency will restore investor confidence. Tianyu's brows knitted. That's a significant request. Significant problems require significant solutions. Her tone was gentle, but her words cut cleanly. You need someone the market trusts. I have that credibility. Let me help you. He studied her in silence. There was something about her eyes. Steel behind serenity. He finally nodded. Fine. You'll have full access to the subsidiary operations. Excellent. As they shook hands, she could feel his pulse, a steady beat under a calm facade. The same hand that once touched her cheek now clasped hers in ignorance. Later that evening, Jiang Rui joined her in the hotel lounge. So, you've just been handed the keys to Zhao Holdings' internal systems, he said. Xiran opened her laptop, a ghost of a smile playing on her lips. Not handed. Earned. With a few keystrokes, she slipped into the company's encrypted databases. The screen filled with financial records, offshore accounts, and private communications. There, Jiang Rui said, pointing. That's the fund they used to buy out Lu Group shares after your father's collapse. Her fingers paused above the keyboard. Then that's where we begin. She transferred the files into a hidden drive. Tomorrow, an anonymous report will reach the Securities Commission. By the time they start investigating, Zhao Holdings will be forced to halt trading. Jiang Rui gave a low whistle. You're dismantling him faster than I expected. Xiran's expression was calm, almost serene. Revenge isn't about speed. It's about precision. She looked out the window where the neon lights shimmered against the rain-slick streets. Let him think I'm his ally, she whispered. When he finally realizes who I am, I want him to see how it feels to lose everything, the same way I did. Across the city, Zhao Tianyu stared at a photograph on his desk. Lu Xinyi in her white engagement gown, smiling as if the world belonged to her. For the first time, a pang of guilt flickered through him. He pushed it away, convincing himself it didn't matter, she was gone. Still, he couldn't shake the sense that somewhere, somehow, she was watching him. It was past midnight in City A, yet the city's heart still pulsed with life. Neon lights painted the wet pavement, and expensive cars glided through the rain like sleek predators. In a high-rise overlooking the river, Shen Xiran stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, her silhouette a dark figure against the city's glittering skyline. On the table behind her, dozens of documents lay open, evidence of Zhao Holdings' fraudulent mergers and illicit offshore transfers. Her next move was ready. But to execute it, she needed something more than information. She needed influence. That was where Li Zhan came in. The name carried weight in City A. CEO of Phoenix Group, a financial titan whose reach extended into every sector that mattered. Ruthless, brilliant, and dangerously enigmatic. Rumor had it he could bankrupt a man before breakfast and dine with his widow by dinner. Xiran had studied him for months, but tonight would be their first meeting. The venue was the Imperial Club, a private establishment where billionaires and power brokers spoke in whispers over fine whiskey. When she entered, the hush was immediate. A woman like her, elegant black dress, diamonds that gleamed like shards of ice, confidence in every step, was impossible to ignore. At the far end of the room, a tall man in a tailored black suit stood beside the window, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. His gaze shifted as she approached, assessing, deliberate. "Miss Shen," he greeted, his voice low, controlled. "You're more punctual than most investors I know." "And you're exactly as hard to reach as they say, Mr. Li," she replied. "I was starting to think I'd have to buy one of your companies just to get your attention." He chuckled, a sound more dangerous than warm. "You don't strike me as the type who waits for invitations." She smiled faintly. "I don't." They sat across from each other. The waiter poured wine, and for a long moment, neither spoke. The silence between them was taut. Two predators circling, neither willing to blink first. Finally, Li Zhan set down his glass. "I've heard of Nova Capital. Fast rise, strategic acquisitions, surgical precision. Some call it talent. I call it vengeance with a business plan." Xiran's fingers paused on the stem of her glass. "Careful, Mr. Li. You make me sound vindictive." He leaned slightly forward. "I make you sound interesting." Her eyes held his without flinching. "Let's not play games. You know I came to discuss Zhao Holdings." His lips curved. "Of course. You've been stirring up quite the storm there. So you've been watching." "I watch everything that moves in my city, Miss Shen." He tilted his head. "Zhao Tianyu's made enemies before, but none this precise. You don't want to destroy him just for business. What's he done to you?" The question lingered in the air like smoke. Xiran's expression didn't change, but her heart tightened. "Let's just say I don't take kindly to thieves." He smiled, but there was an undercurrent of respect in his gaze now. "I see. Then we may have common interests." She raised an eyebrow. "You have a grudge against Zhao as well?" Li Zhan swirled his drink slowly. "He tried to cheat me on a deal 5 years ago. He's forgotten, but I haven't. And I've learned that the best revenge isn't chaos, it's control." Their eyes met. In that instant, a silent understanding passed between them. Two people carved by betrayal, too intelligent to trust easily, yet drawn by the same hunger for retribution. He stood, buttoning his jacket. "You'll find Phoenix Group's resources useful, Miss Shen." I'll expect your call when you're ready to strike. As he turned to leave, she said quietly, Mr. Li. He paused. Do you always help strangers? He looked back, eyes dark and unreadable. You stopped being a stranger the moment you looked at Zhao Tianyu the way I once did. And then he was gone. Later that night, Xiran returned to her penthouse, the rain still tapping against the windows. Zhang Rui was waiting, arms crossed. You met him, he said flatly. I did. And? He's dangerous, she replied, removing her earrings. But he can be useful. Zhang Rui's eyes narrowed. And if he decides to use you? She smiled faintly. Then I'll make sure he regrets it. As she spoke, her phone buzzed, an encrypted message from an unknown number. From LZ. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. watch the news. You'll enjoy it. She stared at the message, a strange thrill curling through her chest. By morning, Zhao Holdings' main supplier had abruptly terminated all contracts, citing financial irregularities. The company's shares nosedived. Panic erupted in the boardroom. Watching the headlines from her suite, Shen Xiran's lips curved slightly. Li Zhan kept his word. And now the game had two players, equally ruthless, equally brilliant, but only one could walk away unscathed. Morning sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Zhao Holdings, but the light did little to warm the air. Executives filed in and out of meeting rooms with tight faces, voices lowered, eyes flicking toward the president's office like frightened birds. Inside, Zhao Tianyu stood before the glass wall, hands clasped behind his back. The skyline he once found intoxicating now pressed on him like a weight. 2 disasters in a month. First the luminous scandal, now the supply chain collapse. Someone was tightening a noose, and he couldn't see who. He turned as Lin Ruyen entered, her usual poise fraying. Tianyu, the media's hounding me. They think I stole Lu Group's patents. Enough, he snapped. Do you think I have time for your tears? You're the one who pushed the luminous launch. Fix it. Her eyes filled, but she didn't argue. She knew the charm he once showed her was gone. In its place was the same coldness he'd once turned on Lu Xinyi. When she left, he pressed his palms against the desk. Shen Xiran. The name had begun circling in his thoughts like a riddle. He'd replayed her tone, her eyes, the way she looked at him as if she already knew all his secrets. He didn't believe in ghosts, yet lately, the office felt haunted. Across the city, in the penthouse at the Jade Crown, Shen Xiran watched the same news broadcast. The announcer's voice was calm, clinical. Zhao Holdings faces severe disruption following the withdrawal of its key suppliers. Analysts predict a significant loss in quarterly revenue. She muted the television and turned to Zhang Rui. He's cornered, he said. Li Zhan's move hit harder than expected. Xiran walked to the window, her reflection layered over the skyline. Cornered men make reckless choices. That's when they show you what they really are. A faint vibration from her phone interrupted them. A message flashed on screen. From LZ. Private meeting tonight. The trap's ready. The meeting place was the Glass Orchid, a rooftop restaurant closed to the public after hours. Wind swept through the open terrace, carrying the faint scent of rain and city smoke. Li Zhan was already there, jacket off, sleeves rolled, the picture of effortless control. Miss Shen, he greeted. I trust the fireworks pleased you. They did, she said. But Zhao Tianyu won't fold after one blow. Of course not. Which is why we give him an exit he can't resist. He slid a folder across the table. This is a proposal for a joint investment fund. If you deliver it, he'll think you're offering a lifeline. He signs. We gain legal access to his private accounts. One signature, and he's ours. She studied him. And when he realizes the trap? Li Zhan smiled. By then, he'll have lost too much to fight back. Their eyes met. Mutual recognition between predators who understood that cooperation was just another form of competition. The next day, Xiran walked into Zhao Holdings wearing a pale gray suit, her calm presence slicing through the chaos. Executives straightened as she passed. In the boardroom, Tianyu looked up from a pile of reports. Miss Shen. He forced a polite smile. If you're here to withdraw your investment, please don't. We can recover. I'm here to help you recover, she said evenly, placing the folder on the table. Phoenix Group and Nova Capital are launching a rescue fund. If Zhao Holdings joins, you'll stabilize instantly. But you must act before the market opens tomorrow. He frowned. Phoenix Group? Li Zhan's involved. She nodded once. He believes in second chances. Something flickered in Tianyu's eyes, relief mixed with suspicion. You move fast, Miss Shen. Time favors the bold, President Zhao. He signed the preliminary agreement without hesitation. The pen left a smooth trail of ink. With it, he surrendered the last of his secrets. That night, Xiran watched the encrypted data upload from Zhao Holdings' internal servers to her private drive. Each progress bar felt like a heartbeat. When it reached 100%, she exhaled. It's done, Jiang Rui said quietly. She closed the laptop. Tomorrow, the regulators will receive everything. Fraud, money laundering, false audits. The empire he built will collapse under its own lies. But even as satisfaction flickered through her, she felt a strange unease. Li Zhan had kept his distance since the meeting. The absence of contact was unlike him. Rui, she said, keep an eye on Phoenix Group's trades tomorrow. I want to know if Li Zhan moves before the report hits. Jiang Rui nodded. You think he'll betray you? Her gaze hardened. In our world, betrayal is currency. I just want to make sure I charge interest. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit office, Li Zhan watched the same contract she'd secured flicker across his monitor. His assistant asked, Sir, should I execute the sell order once Zhao Holdings stock drops? Li Zhan swirled the wine in his glass. Not yet. Let's see whether Miss Shen wants revenge or a throne. The morning sun cast long shadows across Zhao Holdings' boardroom, but it did little to warm the icy tension within. Executives sat stiffly, eyes darting between the phones in their hands and the looming figure at the head of the table. Zhao Tianyu. He had spent the night reviewing the incoming reports, the sudden audits, whistleblower complaints, and regulatory investigations. The numbers made his head spin. Losses were mounting, and each revelation was like a blade cutting deeper into the empire he had built. And then there was her. Shen Xiran. It had begun subtly, an anonymous investor shaking the foundations of Zhao Holdings, exposing illegal practices, manipulating internal politics. But subtlety had its limits. Last night, the board received the final blow. Detailed evidence linking him and Rui Yan directly to embezzlement, fraud, and corporate sabotage. Tianyu's fists clenched. He knew the handwriting behind the strategy, the precision, the timing, the icy cruelty, yet he couldn't place her face. Why does this feel familiar? He slammed his fist on the table. Call her. I want to see her face. Minutes later, Shen Xiran entered, graceful as ever, a faint smile on her lips. The boardroom seemed to shrink around her presence. Every head turned. Tianyu forced himself to rise, composure like a mask, though it was cracking. Miss Shen, he said, voice low. This campaign against Zhao Holdings. It's unprecedented. She stepped forward, placing a folder on the table. I'm simply restoring what should never have been taken. Transparency, accountability, justice. Her eyes met his, cold and unyielding. In that gaze, Tianyu glimpsed shadows of a past he had tried to bury. Panic licked at the edges of his mind. Who are you really? He asked, voice tight. She smiled faintly. The woman you betrayed. The heiress you thought was dead. Lu Xinyi. Silence fell. Tianyu's face paled. Impossible. Rui Yan, who had been quietly observing, gasped and stumbled back. Xinyi? Yes. Her tone was deadly calm. Do you remember how it felt to be abandoned? To watch your family's legacy stolen while your so-called fiancé and friend laughed at your ruin? He shook his head, words failing him. I do, she continued, her voice growing sharper. And that's why I'm here. To remind you what betrayal feels like. The room seemed to hold its breath. Every executive, every staffer, sensed the tension thick as steel. Tianyu finally spoke, voice hoarse. Xinyi. I didn't mean. You didn't care, she interrupted. You only cared about power. And you lost sight of the consequences. Shen Xiran opened the folder, letting the documents spill across the table. Offshore accounts, forged contracts, records of Rui Yan's involvement. The evidence was irrefutable. Tianyu swallowed hard. This can't be real. It's manipulation. Manipulation. Xiran echoed. No. This is justice. And today, you finally see what it's like to have everything stripped away. Her words were surgical, precise. Each one delivered a psychological blow stronger than any physical attack. Ru Yan sank into her chair, trembling. Xinyi, please. Xiran's gaze softened for just a heartbeat, then hardened again. You had your chance. But some lessons require the full weight of consequence. Tianyu sank into his chair, staring at the documents, at the woman who had returned from the dead. For the first time in his life, fear touched him, raw, unfiltered. Why? He whispered, voice barely audible. Why did you come back? To take back everything that was mine, she said simply. And to make sure you understand the cost of betrayal. The boardroom was silent, the weight of truth pressing down. She had won the first battle. The empire that had once seemed untouchable now trembling at her feet. But Shen Xiran's eyes flicked to the window, where the city stretched endlessly. She knew this was only the beginning. There were still battles to fight. Still allies to manipulate. And still one last reckoning left. Revenge is sweet. But power is sweeter. The sun rose over City A, spilling golden light across the skyline. It reflected off the glass towers, painting the city in warmth and promise. A stark contrast to the storm that had raged within Zhao Holdings just days before. Inside the boardroom, silence hung like a heavy curtain. Zhao Tianyu sat with his head bowed, the weight of his failures pressing down. He was no longer the confident man who had once stood beside Lu Xinyi, laughing as he plotted her ruin. Across from him, Lin Ruyen avoided his gaze, her usual composure shattered. She had lost credibility, power, and reputation in the span of a week. The empire she thought she controlled had crumbled in the hands of the woman she had betrayed. And at the center of it all, Shen Xiran, poised, unyielding, and undeniably powerful, surveyed the room like a queen reclaiming her throne. This, she said, her voice calm but filled with authority, is what happens when betrayal meets precision. Zhao Holdings will survive, but only under the terms of justice. She had reinstated the Lu Group's shares, reclaimed her father's patents, and merged them under her new company, Nova Capital, which now operated as both an investment powerhouse and the guardian of her family's legacy. Every move had been calculated, every strike deliberate. Zhao Tianyu finally lifted his gaze. Xinyi, or Shen Xiran. I don't know what to call you now. She smiled faintly. Call me what you will. But remember this. I am the consequence of every choice you made. And yet, I am merciful. You will have a chance to rebuild, but this time with integrity. He nodded, swallowing hard. The lesson had been harsh, but undeniable. Lin Ruyen spoke next, voice trembling. I understand. I accept the consequences of my actions. Xiran inclined her head. Good. Learn from them. That is all I ask. Outside the city, in her private office at Nova Capital, Xiran finally allowed herself a moment of reflection. The storm of revenge had passed, leaving clarity in its wake. She poured herself a cup of tea and gazed out at the city below. A year ago, she had been broken, betrayed, and left for dead. Now she had risen, not just as Lu Xinyi, the heiress, but as Shen Xiran, a force to be reckoned with. Her phone buzzed. A message from Li Zhen. Congratulations. I look forward to seeing what you do next. She smiled faintly, replying. This is only the beginning. The past year had taught her that strength was more than physical or financial power. It was the mastery of patience, of planning, and of knowing when to strike. And above all, it was the refusal to be broken by those who sought to destroy you. Shen Xiran set down her cup. Her reflection in the window was no longer the fragile heiress she had once been. It was a woman forged in fire, sharpened by betrayal, and tempered by the will to reclaim her life. The city below buzzed with life, unaware of the battles fought in the shadows, unaware of the queen who now ruled not with fear, but with precision and wisdom. And somewhere deep inside, Xiran felt something she hadn't in a long time. Peace. The past is behind me. The future is mine. With that, Shen Xiran stepped away from the window, her silhouette bathed in the dawn. The new era had begun, not for Zhao Holdings, not for her enemies, but for herself. The heiress was gone. The woman who had returned was unstoppable. And City A would never forget her name. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more original novel stories. And stay tuned, our next story is coming soon.